What's up, 49er fans? I'm Jason Aponte with a special guest, Rob Stats Guerrera, the big boss man of Standard Podcast Network. We're going to be talking winners and losers from OTAs, something that we learned in the press conference and what to expect going forward. Stick around. Welcome, everybody. Let's go, Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. What's up, 49er fans? I'm Jason Aponte. That's Rob Guerrera. This show is powered by Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you guys use my promo code Aponte to double your first deposit up to $100. It's getting close to football season. Let's do some best ball drafts. Let's get this thing rolling, right? And nothing screams like football season being kicked off, Rob, like OTAs. So first of all, before we get into that, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of talk about the quarterback position. Clearly, we'll get to that. I mean, it's hard to escape that talk right now at this point. But I did want to talk about some players that have actually popped out a little bit due to reports, basically, because media's only been there one day. We can only go by certain reports. Shout out to Grant, Lombardi, Mayoko, everybody who's doing great jobs of letting us know what's going on and the little minute details that we're missing aside from beautiful videos of Trey Lance throwing the football and thousands of amateur quarterback coaches.
Yes.
But I wanted to highlight a few people that it seemed like was unanimous across the board in terms of them doing a great job. Ronnie Bell's one. And yes. I don't know if that really coincides, and I'll ask you this. I don't know if that coincides with the fact that Juwan Jennings will eventually be a real free agent, not an exclusives rights free agent that he is. And kind of the 49ers plan of replacing people before they're ready to go. What do you think about that?
I think that was their thought when they drafted him was like, look, we like Juwan Jennings. We may offer him another contract, but it's going to be at this price. We are not by any stretch of the imagination going to get into some sort of bidding war for him. So if he wants to stick around for our price, great. We'd love to have him. But if not, we're taking steps to prepare for that. And I love the indications from everybody that I've read, which is basically like he doesn't blow you away physically, but he's always catching the ball.
Sticky hands, not afraid to get in the middle of the field. That's all the type of thing that screams like third down clutch guy, which is exactly what Juwan Jennings has been during his 49ers time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, Rob, is when you look at Juwan Jennings' numbers from the outside, let's say you're not a 49ers fan, you're not necessarily blown away. But what 49er fans know is he's a machine on third down and he's a dog run blocking. And that is something that I can bet other teams are paying attention to. And other teams are going to offer him a bigger contract than I think maybe even he believes he may get or some more money than he's been getting, clearly. But I do think that people value that, right? Like, again, Kendrick Bourne played himself into a nice little contract over in New England. Now he's fallen out of favor. That's just Bill Belichick. But still, other teams look around at what the 49ers are trying to build, and they're trying to duplicate that. So how best to duplicate it than bring in a person who has been running that system and gives you those intangibles? So, yeah, Ronnie Bell, man, it's good to hear that. He feels like a Shanahan receiver, like one of those guys that's not like the anti-Dante Pettis, if you will, right? Like somebody who will get in there and catch the ball and really stick his nose into traffic. So, yeah, I liked hearing about Ronnie Bell. Another guy that I liked hearing about, and this is something that it was a little bit of a concern going into the season for me, kind of fell by the wayside because of Diamador Lenore being there. But it's good to hear Darrell Luter actually playing well. So apparently there was a long throw to Danny Gray. He got a step on him. Sam Darnold threw it. It was a little underthrown, and we'll get to that. I don't want to steal Grant's line. What is it? More on him in a minute. But Darrell Luter didn't panic, and he made sure that he got back and he broke that up. How important is it for this team to have another cornerback that possibly can step in right away if there is an injury to either Charvarius Ward or Diamador Lenore? I almost wanted to say Emmanuel Mosley. It's just because that's a Freudian slip.
Oh, man, I wish he was still here. I think it's massive because you look at the depth behind those two, and it's just not there. And I think that was one of the things that was very attractive to the 49ers when they drafted Darrell Luter is he's looks like he can step in right away. Adam Peters talked about that. They all raved about how he was very mature after the draft. He's married already. He's a professional player. He's prepared. And I think they're realistic. Like they assume we're not probably going to have both our starting quarters for all 17 games. We need somebody that we can have faith in. We all don't want another Brian Allen game. So, Darrell Luter, come on down.
Yeah, and again, third round pick Ambry Thomas seems to just be completely out of favor. Now, again, it's important not to overreact to these things. Guys who are in these media-driven OTAs are popping out, but it doesn't mean that they're headed for stardom. If somebody struggled in that day, it doesn't mean that they're headed for whatever it is. But it's just the more and more you hear about the optimism around other corners and their own actions, it just feels like they're doing anything they can to not have Ambry Thomas on the field. Third round pick Ambry Thomas. That one's gotta hurt, man, right now.
I mean, for Ambry, yeah, but you can't expect the Niners to sit on their hands. It's not like a Trey Lance situation, right? Ambry's been playing. He's been in there in games in the NFL. They feel like they've gotten enough of a sample. It's more than 8 or more than 4 starts, by the way. So I think they realize what they have and what they don't have and what they need. And so they've taken the steps to try and rectify that. And it's on Ambry. Like, show a little urgency here, like you're dangling here by a thread. So unless you're going to change something, you're headed for free agency.
And that's the thing, too, I want to remind people about in OTAs, right? Like, you're not really going to hear too many things about offensive line because they can't hit. There's no pads. What you're going to hear about are wide receivers, corners, because those are going to be the battles where, you necessarily can't be as physical, but those are the things that'll take place. So that's why, if you're wondering, why isn't anybody talking about this player, it's because offensive line's probably taken out of it. Fred Warner didn't practice. You're not going to hear about defensive line because those guys can't hit. But you're going to hear about corners, and you're going to hear about wide receivers, and you're going to hear about quarterbacks. And you're going to hear about kickers as well, too, because there's some conflicting reports out there, Rob. There's some drama in the kicker world. We'll get to it, though. But another cornerback that apparently did very well, Isaiah Oliver had a pass breakup that was on a deeper shot down the field as well, too. Long, rangy. That's good to hear. Sounds like he's the incumbent. Well, not incumbent, right? That's the wrong word. He's the leader of the clubhouse at nickel corner, wouldn't you say?
I would. And to hear Steve Wilks tell it, I mean, in his first press conference, he called Isaiah Oliver the best nickel corner that was on the market this free agency. So he obviously thinks very highly of him. Obviously, he coached against him when Oliver was in Atlanta and Wilks was in Carolina. So you got to see him twice a year. But it's all early returns, but he seems like he's as advertised, and you need that. I mean, how many times you're in nickel, just as often as you're in base, probably more often than you're in base. So you need to have a reliable nickel corner, and that's all he needs to be. He doesn't need to be, the best nickel corner in the league. He just needs to be not a liability. And if they have that with the pass rush that they should have this year, the Niners will be fine.
Absolutely. And a lot of people forget that the nickel, everybody always was talking about base defense, right? When the whole Fangio thing was out there, well, they don't run that base. Well, nobody's in base. Everybody's spread out at this point. You do need a nickel corner most of the time. Sure, maybe on first down you can be in base, but other than that, second and third down are largely going to be passing downs, especially with the way that the game's going. But I think one aspect that people, I guess, have heard about, but I don't think they understand how good he's been is in run defense. And his grades by PFF, which not exactly the Bible, but it is a good indicator, it goes up every single year. And he's not afraid to get in there. And you have to think about it. When they're spreading you out, as an offense, sometimes you have to act like a smaller linebacker at times. And you have to be able to defend the run. And I think that's something that K'Wan Williams did so well, something that Jimmy Ward did very well. And I think that's an underrated aspect of nickel corner. I think that's kind of what we're missing with Oliver. Would you say?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Kyle, I mean, look how Kyle treats defensive backs on offense, right? He literally will run right at them. And he's like, they can't tackle, just make them miss or run over them, but you're not getting stopped by the corner. Well, on the opposite end, they have the complete opposite philosophy. They don't want somebody that's a liability in the run game. He's going to have to step up and tackle. And if he doesn't, he'll be out of there. They'll put somebody else in there, or they'll maybe mess around with having an additional safety in that spot. They'll figure it out, but he's going to have to tackle. It's like blocking on offense if you're a receiver. If you don't block, you ain't going to play. Well, if you don't tackle as that nickel, you ain't going to play either.
Absolutely. So we talked about 2 rookies and a new 49er. Now let's talk about a second-year player. Now, I did mention that the defensive line isn't going to get a lot of love, but I do think that there is something encouraging coming out of OTAs, is that Drake Jackson has put on weight. And that was one of the things that when you looked at him, you saw the physical tools, you knew that was there, but you did realize that he did need to gain some weight at this level. Now, it looks like he has. Last year, he hit a bit of a rookie wall, which Kyle Shanahan spoke about. But if Drake Jackson is already put on the weight, and now if he's adding to his bag, which the only other thing that I had as a concern coming out, because I loved his pass rushing bag, was just to add a little bit more at this level and also be able to consistently stop the run so you can be on the field as a 3-down lineman. This is already a good sign, right, Rob?
Absolutely, because it shows a commitment. It shows that Drake Jackson recognized what he needed to address in the offseason, and then he went and did it. That's awesome, what you want to see from a rookie to a second-year player. And I think David Lombardi tweeted that he's up to 265, which he was at 252 last year. Like, apparently that's like the sweet spot where the Niners want him. He's somebody, if you remember, whose weight fluctuated a lot in college at USC. He never really had a consistent position and a consistent weight. I feel like the 49ers told him, look, this is what we want you to do. This is the weight we need you to be at to be able to do it consistently. And by all indications, he went out and did it. So good on him, because that's not always the case. We don't always see that jump and that improvement and that commitment from young players. And it looks like he went out and did it. And he's really important, Jason. If they can get any consistency in terms of a pass rush out of Drake Jackson, that is massive for this defense opposite Nick Bosa.
And that's what they're betting on. That's why they haven't run out. And they didn't even necessarily address pass rush until later on with Beal. They didn't address it with a 3rd-round pick, right? Like they went out of their way and they got Jair Brown, who I love. They took Jake Moody, which got to address that kicker position, man. Forget edge rushers. You don't need them. But it shows the confidence that they have. And they are expecting a leap. So that's the thing, is to see the first little bit of this come to fruition, if they've already put the confidence in him, it's going to be massive, and they're going to need that from him. Now, I forget there was a pass rusher who signed today or something like that, right? Oh, Marcus Golden. Marcus Golden signed with Pittsburgh. So, again, there's Leonard Floyd, Yannick Ngakoue, Justin Houston, who I definitely want the 49ers to take a look at, Frank Clark, others that are out there, Jadeveon Clowney. Mm-hmm. I kind of brought it up on Bully Ball, but I wanted to get your take on it. Are the 49ers kind of just having this $9 million that they have in cap to just see what happens, someone gets injured, address it that way? Or, will they address it before camp? And a lot of these guys have bought themselves the luxury of being able to skip OTAs, mini camp, and just say, get me ready for training camp. Like, I already know what I need to do to stay in shape. They've done enough in this league to do that. Are the 49ers kind of just going to play and wait and see and hope that Drake Jackson does it? Or are they waiting for an injury or someone who can push them over the hump during the season?
I hope it's that they have reached out and that somebody wants to sign with them. And they were like, look, I don't need to be there for OTAs. We all know you're just signing me to rush the passer. I've been in this league for 10 years. I know exactly how to do, I hope that they're just lying in wait and they bring a veteran in after OTAs, because I really think that the defense needs the cherry on top of the sundae, right? Like, I just think of the 49ers in 2012 going out and signing Randy Moss, who had been retired. Like, yes, go add that extra little piece that you need. We always talk about the Super Bowl window. Well, that's what you do when you're in a Super Bowl window. You try to throw those cherries on top. I'm old enough to remember the 94 49ers signing Richard Dent to play on that team, future Hall of Famer. You always like to add those pieces at the end, just like the Niners always love to say, to insulate yourself, right? Well, those guys are out there, and it's definitely a need for the 49ers. And any free agent addition would take some of the pressure off Drake Jackson, right? He wouldn't need to be a 10-sack guy if he can be a 5 or 6-sack guy, and then one of these free agent pass rushers could get 5, 6, 7 of their own. That changes things. It helps keep everybody fresh. I would love to see it from the 49ers. I don't know that we're going to, but I keep hoping.
Yeah, and I love the insulate term. It sounds like you're convicted in this take. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let that one go. We're just going to keep running that one to the ground. But I do think that this money affords the 49ers more flexibility, right? Talking about last year's Christian McCaffrey trade, they still had 2 more years on the contract. Now they can kind of wait for a guy who's on an expiring deal, make that move. They can absorb that. And let's not forget, once Nick Bosa signs his extension right before training camp, as I expect, that clears up more money. So the 49ers will be able to do a lot of things and just, it's almost like having a savings and just stashing it away for a rainy day. And you never know when that rainy day will come. And we all know how the 49ers have injury problems. So I do like the idea of keeping the flexibility. But I do think they're showing a ton of confidence in Drake Jackson. And I mean, no bigger vote of confidence than not addressing the position when you could have drafted like Isaiah McGuire. You could have already signed one of these guys already. They really believe that Drake Jackson, Clean Farrell, Austin Bryant, Kerry Hyder, that rotation is going to be able to do enough. But I'm with you, Rob. I really love the idea of a speed rusher, Justin Houston. It would give them what they've been trying to chase since 2019. Now that they have Javon Hargrave, as you would have your D4 type with Bosa, and now you've got your stud defensive tackles. That would make this team so scary. And I don't even think it would cost that much for Justin Houston. Depending on how, I don't really talk about like how much the cap hit is and all that stuff. That stuff I completely stay away from. But for me, I think that it would behoove them to have more depth because you can never have enough.
I mean, look, with the cap, especially on like what would probably be a 1-year deal, like you can finagle it you can do it. That's not going to be an obstacle for them. But you're right. They have been sort of chasing that 2019 defense. I think they think that is the best version of what they can be. And they thought that they were going to just plug Javon Kinlaw in there and that D Ford was going to be able to give them more than he did. And so that they would be set there for a few years. It didn't work out that way, of course. And they've been trying to get back to that. Because if you've got two guys flying off the edge, the only place the quarterback can go is to step up the middle. And if you have Javon Hargrave there clogging things up, they're screwed. And that's what the 49ers want. That's the best way for them to take pressure off of the secondary, which is, I don't want to say weak, but it's the weaker part of the 49ers defense.
I probably could. I think you have to kind of agree with that. But I do think that if Tick is what I think he is, if Darrell Luter is what it may become a strength. So again, that's the fun part about OTAs is right now we're just trying to figure out what you have. You're not going to know until pads start popping. This is why OTAs, is synonymous with optimism, right? Like everybody across the league is posting videos of receivers catching deep passes and none of that's going to matter when things really go down. But almost 20 minutes in, Rob, and we still haven't mentioned the quarterback. This has got to be a new record right here. But make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to both our channels, my channel, Gold Standard Podcast Network that Rob's on, and also Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Aponte to double your first deposit up to $100. We're going to throw some best ball drafts out there, so be ready. They fill up fast. Once they're done, you just start drafting. So, all right, Rob, let's talk about what everybody wants to hear. Kicker, let's go. So, Matt Mayoko tweets out that, and Coach, I see your super chat. I'm just going to save it and we'll right after this topic. So Matt Mayoko tweets that was it they both made kicks, Gonzalez and Moody, right?
Yep.
From 35 and 40 or something like that, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they both missed from 48.
Yes.
Concern, intrigue.
The funny thing was Mayoko tweeted Moody and Zane Gonzalez hit field goals of 33, 38, and 43 yards. Both missed from 48. David Lombardi tweeted Jake Moody nailed all of his field goal attempts at practice today, which I'm not trying to say that David is trying to lie to people. I think there's a lot going on at practice and he may have missed it. I talked with Grant Cohn about that today on Gold Standard. And he basically said like, it might have been close. And so Grant said, I just looked at the ref because the Niners hire refs and they do the signals. And maybe David didn't happen to see the ref. So he thought it went in. Look, Jake Moody's going to miss some kicks. Like it is going to happen. I know that no one can stand that because he was a 3rd-round pick. So he's got to be perfect all the time. That's just not going to be the case. The hope is that he makes the ones he has to make, right? At the ends of the games, at the ends of halves. Can he do that? The pressure kicks. If he can at least do that, you can weather a year of, let's face it, rookie kickers are not usually that good in their rookie year. Even the great ones usually only make like 80% of their kicks, something like that. So you got to hope the ones that he does make are the big ones.
Yeah, and a little bit to my experiences being, a training camp at times, right? I went to the joint practices, I want to say 2 years ago against the Chargers, and Trey Lance was taking the rep, and I believe he threw a pass that looked like an interception. And writers were writing down interception, right? And they were saying that. But if you look at the ref is waving it incomplete because it hit the ground. So that is your best indicator at times. Look, again, I'm just being funny, man. Who cares? I did think it was kind of funny that Matt Mayoko said, I don't know why Zane Gonzalez is here. Because what is Jake Moody does Jake Moody have a chance to lose this competition? Because that's not great.
Yeah, I don't like. Maybe they don't want to cut Zane because they want Jake to like worry a little, right? Because if they cut Zane, then they're like, all right, he's like, I'm in. So maybe they want him to think that they might cut him, but I just can't see a world. He would have to be so bad in training camp and preseason that they had no other choice. But it's not like there aren't still guys out there. I mean, Brandon McManus just got cut this week, I think today or yesterday.
Robbie Gold's still out there.
Right. So even if they cut Zane, Jake Moody can't exhale too much because there's always options on the free agent wire.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I kind of need Zane Gonzalez to stick around because he's wearing number 10. And my plan, if I'm not credentialed for training camp, is to show up at camp with the Gonzalez taped over my Garoppolo jersey and just be funny, like, and go there because that's my kicker one. But let's get to Coach's super chat. Thank you, Coach. Very generous. I think the Niners have been chasing a homegrown talent at that opposite edge position for some years now. I think that's true as well. They've been outsourcing by need. They want to develop guy, especially for the money, in my opinion. I do not disagree with any of that. Remember, when a lot of people look at the 49ers and they say, well, they don't take chances, they took a chance on D Ford. That was very much an all-in move in 2019 because they knew the issues that he was having with his health, but they knew that if they got him ready for Sunday, you don't practice D Ford, you never practice him, you just get him ready for Sunday and get him to the game. They really thought that was going to be, and it almost was. It almost was. So, right. But I do agree with this idea of developing a guy and having someone that's homegrown. One, they're cost controlled for a while. Two, they build an allegiance and start to feel the culture and maybe want to stick around. And I think that's a little bit important. What do you think, Rob?
Absolutely. And we've seen this Niners locker room sort of set the standard. There was even talk of that this week with Christian McCaffrey doing the same thing. Like they sort of police themselves. So you want to get your people in the building as early as possible when they're still building their professional habits so that that culture continues. That's how you are great over a long period of time. Yes, you need great coaching and you need good players, but you also need the players themselves to just sort of have this culture of this is how we do things around here. And if you can't get with the program, then get the hell out.
Absolutely. Shout out to Coach. Thank you for the donation, buddy. And I see you killing it over there on Grant's channel too as well. If you guys don't know, Coach is on Grant's channel, I think once a week, and they do very good breakdowns, man. Shout out to Coach, man. Always been a guy who supported. So, yeah, I guess it's time, Rob. 22 minutes, right? Like, I think it's time. So, a lot was made of Trey Lance's throwing mechanics, and it's tough for someone who isn't familiar with the intricacies of mechanics. And that's why I defer to people who have either played the position or teach the position, right? Because someone will look and say, oh, look, this is different. This is different. Do you know why they're different? Do you know what that's supposed to do? Do you know why that is important? Do you know why his hips have to be a certain way, right? But I'll ask you, did you see any real change? I mean, I think I saw a little bit of a change, but people were making it seem like this is this drastic thing. I think we just saw something that was a little bit more sharp than something drastic.
To me, the only thing that looked noticeably different was his follow-through. When I first saw Lance, that's what jumped out at me. He had this almost like a whipping. His arm would whip over and then bounce back, which I really felt like I never saw. That was always the thing. It was always like a violent kind of over the top bounce back. And when I saw him this week, he didn't have that. It looked much more kind of in control with the follow through. It wasn't quite like a whipping motion. But like you said, I don't know what that helps. I don't know why that's better. All I know is it looked different to me. And that's all I can really say because I'm not a mechanics expert.
Well, the thing is this too. It does look cleaner. It looks more compact. His base looks better. And you always hear Coach talk about that. There's the infamous picture of Coach with in between the pad, barefoot. That's what he's talking about with base. And when I listen to people who either coach the position or played it, it's your legs make you less of an arm thrower and you generate more power that way. In the same way, like a baseball swing, everything should come from the hips when you explode to the baseball. So everything is all relative. Now, the question becomes this. It's good to see this, but will the old habits revert if he has a pass rusher on him? And I think that's the hard part. And even Kyle Shanahan, someone cut out a nice little clip of him talking about that and saying, yeah, you can do it with T-shirts and shorts, but what's going to happen when there's a guy bearing down on you? Are you going to revert back to your old ways? And I do remember when Colin Kaepernick was here, every year he's working with Kurt Warner. He's getting this, he's fixing this. And then In the games, it kind of just looked the same. How hard is it, you think, Rob, to when you've built a habit, right? What do they say? You do something 8 times and it's a habit. How hard is it if you've been playing football for how long to work those habits out and keep them out?
I think it's almost impossible, to be honest with you. And here's why. And this is what I said with Grant earlier today. Right now, the only thing Trey Lance has to think about when he drops back is all those mechanical adjustments that he made, right? Keep this leg bent and this elbow straight or whatever they might be. That's the only thing he has to think about. He doesn't have to check. Did everybody line up in the right spot? How much time's left on the play clock? What defense are they in? Okay, we snap the ball. Did they rotate at the snap of the ball? Is it the same defense I thought? Is there an oncoming pass rusher now? Oh, this guy's breaking free. Now I have to roll out. He didn't have to worry about all that other stuff. In the game, he does. You don't have time to think when you're throwing the ball. Let me make sure my leg is where it's impossible. You do not have time. The game moves too fast. And so that's why we usually do see guys revert. It's because it's impossible to do everything. And so you have to manage all of that. If Trey can pull it off, that would be incredible, especially in an offseason where he had 2 ankle surgeries. But we'll have to see. That's going to be the big test for him. And if he can, I think that will go a long way with Kyle and the coaching staff.
And that's another thing, Rob, and I'm glad you brought that up about, things being perfect. Like, it sounds like these throws and the mechanical changes are from a perfect pocket. How often do you get a perfect pocket, especially with the 49ers, right? So there's a guy bearing down on you. You've got to adjust your arm slot to get it around the guy. Like we saw Brock Purdy do things like that. There's something that kicks in when you're in the pocket. It has to be something, it's instinct. And it's not something that you can teach. You can't teach arm angle at a certain, because you can't ever figure out where guys are coming from. Or if there's a guy in front of you, you can't put your leg down in the right spot, but you still have to make the throw. You're still expected to make the throw because you have the time. These are all the things that, while it's good to hear good things when you hear his quarterback coach and you see the video, we won't know what development he's made until he's under these circumstances. And I don't want to be a wet blanket. I'm not trying to throw water on the fire. I'm just trying to be grounded, realistic. What's the word we were using on bully ball? Objective. Like that. It looks good, but show me you can do it in the game when the pads are popping. That's really what I'm going to be looking for.
I love that point by you because I honestly never thought of it, but you're 1,000% right. It's one thing to have a new throwing motion, new mechanics when you drop back and you're in the pocket. But did they work on how to incorporate that stuff when you're on the run, maybe off the wrong foot, all that other stuff? I don't know. Maybe they have. I have no idea. And the good news is that Trey said he's basically going to go right back to working with Jeff Christensen after OTAs are over for the 40 days between OTAs and training camp. So maybe they can get to it then. But we don't know that. And that's a factor too, because there are a lot of plays where you're on the run, you're rolling out or what have you. And if you can't reliably make the throws you have to make, you're not going to be the guy under center.
Absolutely. And so it sounds from all accounts that Trey Lance was fine, right? Like he looked good. The throws were good, right? Again, no defensive pass rush, no offensive line. But again, it's good to hear these things. But again, it should be taken either with a grain of salt or just, hey, let's slow down. It's OTAs. You're just trying to ramp up. And I think that's kind of what Kyle Shanahan was talking about. Same thing with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold feels like he's a little bit behind. His first 2 days in the building, at least Trey Lance has experience with the offense and he understands it a little bit more than he does. I'm not rushing to conclusions when it comes to the first team reps. I actually wrote about it today on Niners Nation because Kyle Shanahan kind of threw water on all that. And I want to read his exact words because I don't want to summarize it. I was sent the transcript so I could write the article. So everybody kind of jumped out about first team reps. Well, he had the first team reps. Well, look, he's the first one out. But Kyle Shanahan said when he was asked about how did Trey Lance and Sam Darnold do for the most part, he said they had 2 days. I thought they did a great job. We're just putting our base stuff in on offense and defense. I thought that it's been a really good 2 days for them. Has Trey been getting all the first team snaps? He said, I think he did for today and yesterday. So far, yeah, he has. And then this is the one. Is there any meaning to that? No. It'll even out. We'll make sure to get that right. And the first team is kind of funny because there's no O-line out there, and most of our receivers are second and third team on the first team today. So I'm curious what everyone thinks first and second and third team is. Rob, react.
Kyle Shanahan in midseason form, right? Couldn't wait to condescend to the question. And I honestly think that he doesn't realize how that comes off. In his mind, he's just laughing at the idiot person asking the question who doesn't realize that there is no first and second team because it's OTAs and it really doesn't mean anything. But like, you know what we're getting at, Kyle. Like, you didn't have to do that, but he loves to go out of his way just to point out how little the people asking questions know about football and how much he knows about football. It's the only time he smiled in the whole press conference, by the way, was when he got to correct somebody that asked the question that he didn't like. So whatever. You're the ones that put Trey Lance there, right? You did it for a reason. Did you pick it out of a hat? I don't think you did. So he can say it's totally meaningless. I don't think it is.
Well, I think that, all right, I think that it kind of backs up what I was talking about just being OTAs right at this point. And Sam Darnold is behind him in terms of the learning curve at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't it be Trey Lance? But when there's no offensive line, most of the offensive linemen weren't there, obviously, or obviously there's nothing going on. And then Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk aren't there. That's not building rapport with them either. I think the biggest thing to take away from these comments is it's not as important as you believe it is. And until there's actual pads popping and play where they can see a pass rusher bearing down on him, is he going through the right progressions? Is he looking good from the pocket? That's when we'll start to see traction on this. So again, a lot of people are taking victory laps on first team reps. It's nice, but it may not mean anything. And I'm not trying to be a wet blanket. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to be objective because I do think people have drawn lines on where they want to be, and they're going to use this information to push whatever it is that they want to happen, as opposed to letting things play out, which I know is a boring answer, right? Like everybody wants the hard take, I said this in July, so make sure you give me my credit. Everybody wants that. But I'm going to be the person that's just taking things as they go, and I'm going to try to update my views as they go along. Isn't that boring, Rob?
Well, I do kind of disagree because there's this sentiment out there as people love to tweet like, how about 49er fans just cheer for whoever quarterback one is? And it's like, yes, we will do that. There's nobody out there that's rooting against the 49ers because they don't like the quarterback. That's just not what is happening. Nobody is doing that, but they don't play a real game for 4 months, Jason. So we're going to make our picks as to who we want to be the quarterback and who we hope is the quarterback. And we're going to react to what actually happens from now until then. So as I don't know what the word is, like, as cool as it looks for people to say, like, let's just let the process play out. We don't have a choice. That's all we can do, but we are going to talk about it between now and then. And so I don't know. I get frustrated with that because I do feel like there's a part of the 49ers fan base that thinks that people are rooting against the team, and that's just not the case.
Well, I think the difference between the two, Rob, is updating your views as they go along and reporting what's happening. Not reporting, but I guess talking about what's happening, as opposed to being rigid and just saying, well, I told you Trey was going to start, or I told you this was going to happen. I think that's what I mean more than anything. It's like if Trey has a string of during training camp of days where he's knocking it out of the park, then you just say that. If Sam Darnold's playing better than Trey, then just say that. Not, I told you this was going to happen. I told you this was going to happen. I think that's when people are getting in trouble. That's what I mean more than anything with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. New information can lead to new opinions. You have to incorporate new data into what you think. I mean, if you don't, what's the point of doing a show? If I already know, like, if you're never going to change regardless of what happens, that seems a little nuts to me. So I do agree with that. And I do think that there are people that maybe are pretty rigid out there, but you can't get attached like that, I think, because there's too much, it's too fluid. You can say what you want to happen and what you hope should happen, but you also have to be realistic and look at what did occur and incorporate that into what you say.
And you also have to remember that Kyle Shanahan does not give a shit what you, I, or anybody else thinks as well too. So you can hope, you can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see what gets filled out more. So I did think that there was another interesting nugget where someone asked about Trey Lance's finger. And again, I'm not going to summarize the words. I'm going to read them because I have the transcript right in front of me. So he was asked about the question was, I know you referenced with Trey in the past that finger injury kind of slowed his development a bit. Where is he now in terms of being removed from that, and how much did it impact his first couple of years? Kyle said, I think it impacted him a ton because he had to adjust during the season just to be able to get through. He was healthy, but it didn't heal healthy. So he had to change how he played in the middle of the year while mainly taking scout team reps and being prepared as a number 2 except for a couple of games. Going into the offseason, having to recorrect that. I think it took him all offseason, so he worked on recorrecting that throughout the whole offseason, and then he was just thrown into practice with us going into this year. That was corrected throughout last year, his grip and everything. I thought he had that going this time with his time away. He knew what he had to focus on. He had known what he had struggled with. He had known what he had done good with. He has gotten to see 2 different quarterbacks playing our offense 2 different ways, and I just think his time away was a lot more deliberate and in a position where he knew what he can isolate on, which I think helped him compared to last year. Why does it seem like the finger issue is now being brought up more and more when it was never brought up at all? And how could that not affect him, Rob?
Well, and you know what else isn't being brought up? The ankle that he had 2 surgeries on to fix. We're talking about a finger injury from his rookie year in 2021. So that is really surprising to me. And I actually was on VSiN yesterday with Sean King, the former Buccaneers quarterback. And I asked him, can an injury to your finger, even the index finger on your throwing hand, can it really mess with the rest of your throwing motion that much? And he answered pretty bluntly, no, it can't. So take that with a grain of salt. I do think it's strange. I agree with you that we are talking so much about this finger injury. Like they are claiming that all of his problems go back to this finger injury. And that doesn't seem like it adds up to me.
Yeah, it's more and more we keep hearing about it. That's the part that I'm just like, I thought this was a non-issue, right? Like I understand that it impacted him in his rookie year, but it didn't matter because Jimmy Garoppolo was going to start regardless. That's fine, but having it affect him go into this year, like year after year now, it's a little bit, right? Like it's a little bit troubling, just a little troubling. Like I'm not the biggest conspiracy theorist. I'm not somebody who likes to read tea leaves or whatever it is. Because like I said, sometimes those tea leaves turn into the things that Aaron Rodgers drinking and it puts you in a different mind state. But I do think that it is telling that this is coming out. So I want to ask you this. Only God knows if Brock Purdy is going to be ready in week 1. Kyle Shanahan is such a quote machine. He is just a quote machine. I mean, and he's getting better as the years go on with it. And I think he's kind of relishing playing around with people and condescending. But is all of this talk about Lance and Darnold moot once Brock Purdy is ready? I think it is.
As long as Brock recovers the way they think, it absolutely is. I mean, they have told us repeatedly now that it's Brock's team, that he earned it through what he did last year, and that everything else is everything else. Is, they keep saying, we love Trey, but Brock, we like Sam, but Brock. The only thing that I thought was funny was Kyle Shanahan said, we have no reason to believe that Brock Purdy won't be ready for week 1. Of course you don't. He hasn't even started throwing a football yet.
Throwing towels really well.
Yeah, he's going through violent throwing motions with towels. He's going to start throwing June 2nd, which is next week, which, by the way, is not ahead of schedule. If you hear Ian Rappaport say, oh, he's ahead of schedule, he's not.
On schedule.
It's on, which is fine. It's 12 weeks from the surgery. The surgery was March 10th. You take a calendar and count the weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go all the way to 12, and guess what you get? Next week. So he's right on schedule. Ian Rappaport was saying he's a little ahead of schedule. He's not. And that's really where the rubber will meet the road. Can he throw a football? How does his arm react once he throws a football? Is it sore? Does he still have the power? All that stuff. It's like we're just now going to be able to begin to see when he can come back and what that window might look like.
For sure. And again, I'm going to say it again. Brock Purdy has earned every single right to be the first guy up whenever that is, if he's ready to go, if they're confident. I mean, you can't take away what he did last year at all. But that's really the crux of my argument, what you brought up about why you can't get rid of Trey Lance and you have to keep Sam Darnold around, is because you don't know how his arm is going to react. You don't know if he's going to be the same guy right away. Is there, again, range of outcomes? Brock Purdy's ready to roll in a perfect world. In a world where there's rainbows and sunshine and nothing but green grass and rabbits bouncing around, Brock Purdy's ready to go week 1, and he is the guy. And he's that guy. He's that guy from last year. No questions asked, ready to roll. Do we live in a perfect world, especially in 49ers quarterback world? No, we don't. So you do understand why there are people there, that again, trade Trey Lance. Why? You need someone to be there just in case something like that happens. So, Coach with another donation, man. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate you. The smoking gun is when Trey took third-party consulting and found another quarterback coach after leaving the coach the Niners recommended. Ask that. That
Facts.
If I got in the media room, I would ask that. I would definitely ask that.
Right. So for people that don't know, Trey Lance was working with Quincy Avery before the draft. And before the Niners picked him, they asked him to go work with John Beck, who was Kyle Shanahan's guy.
And by the way, at the Senior Bowl, when I was with Javi and we saw Quincy Avery, we blunt out asked him, "Are you going to be working with Trey?" He goes, "Half with me, half with Beck." Like he knew too at that point at the Senior Bowl 2 years ago, by the way.
So, and John Beck was coached by Kyle Shanahan. He knows Kyle Shanahan's offense. They sent him to John Beck to see if he could run what the 49ers run the way they wanted him to run it. And now, all of a sudden, we're on quarterback coach number 3 now in Jeff Christensen, who is also Patrick Mahomes' coach. I feel like you have to mention that by law whenever you bring him up.
For sure.
And so that is interesting. You know, did he do that on his own? Did the Niners suggest? I have no idea, right? I don't know how, in particular, he got matched up with Jeff Christensen. Reportedly, it's working, that they found some things, whatever, we'll find out. But yeah, how many quarterbacks that have only been in the league since 2021 have 3 personal quarterback coaches?
Yes. And it's just another layer to the story. Great point by the coach, by the way. It's just another layer to the story, right? The broken finger, the quarterback coaches, he doesn't need to fix his mechanics. Well, he's fixed his mechanics. Like I'm listening to like on both sides, all of these things come out. And as long as it's not Scangarello, I think I'm okay more than anything. So you guys know how much of a big fan I am of his. So coach obviously didn't go out of it. He went right out of his way to make sure that he praised Sam Darnold some more. When he was asked about him at the end of I feel like the last 4 questions were to him about Sam. So they asked him, does Darnold have a veteran presence? He's still young, or is he kind of a younger quarterback in your mind? He said, I met Sam just when he came out of college, just interviewing him in Indy. Even then, he seemed like he had a veteran presence, just the way he carries himself, whether he's in a football building or whoever his peers are off the field. And he seems almost like the guy I met 5 years ago. So he is a little bit more of a veteran, being in a couple places, but Sam's coming here to me being the same guy he's always been. That's why he's had such a good reputation, and he's coming here acting like he's learning everything from scratch, which he is, and trying to act like a rookie in that way because it's all new to him. He doesn't want to make any assumptions, and he's been awesome in phase 1 and phase 2, trying to do the techniques he's not used to and things like that. And it's been cool that he put in the work with those 2 phases that he's been able to see some of in the last 2 practices. This man cannot go out of his way to speak about this guy enough. Like, he just continues to just like give these paragraphs of like, and again, it was reported the 49ers offered a 1st-round pick to the New York Jets for Sam Darnold. And thank the New York Jets for being inept. They said no. No, thank you. Thank God. Thank God for them. But this kind of feels like the one that got away a little bit, right? Like I know it's Kirk. But the more and more I hear him talk about Sam, he really, really loves this guy, man.
It's irrational. Like, at least with Kirk Cousins, he had Kirk Cousins. He drafted Kirk Cousins, right? This doesn't make any sense. He liked him coming out in 2018, and he has put the blinders on, and he has ignored the 56 games of crap that we have seen from Sam Darnold. I don't understand it. I will never understand it. He's gotten 2 coaches fired already, Sam Darnold. I'm going to try for number 3. Like, do you just think you're so good that you can end that? Like, I do not get it. There were other quarterbacks available on the market, and God help us if Sam Darnold has to play for this team. Because if you're worried about Trey Lance in the Super Bowl window, buckle up, because Sam Darnold will end that right quick. There's no game he can't lose. Hell, he already has a fumble already. He fumbled one of his snaps in OTAs today.
He did fumble. He did fumble. And he also had some passes that were behind. And I believe the one-handed catch that Braden Willis made was destined for a 49er defender. So look, again, I'm not gonna take too much away from this, right? Like, it's not end all be all. Remember, Sam Darnold is somebody who is he's behind the 8 ball a little bit, right? In terms of not knowing the system. Okay. True. So like, I do want to add all that in there. Again, objective. The word is objective. The word of the day, like Sesame Street, is objective. But yeah, for that, it's just funny to me that the more I hear him speak about Sam Darnold, it's just like this unspoken love that now he gets to just pour out, that he's like been writing in his diary for years and years about Sam Darnold.
I feel like he just identifies guys. I mean, we always hear about when they have to bring in like veteran guys. It's always like, well, I coached him here or I scouted him here. It's like he makes a list of guys that he likes, and then he will find a way to coach them. Come hell or high water, they will be on a Shanahan team, damn it.
Oh man. So again, OTAs were fun to hear about. I think the most exciting part is just seeing the guys on the field. Now, obviously, Juwan Jennings was working through an injury. Same thing with Brandon Ayuk. I don't think Debo showed up. I think he's just working out on his own.
Hate
Fred
that.
Warner showed up. Fred Warner showed up. Didn't practice. Obviously, he was there. Kittle was there as well too. Fumbled the football. I think on one of those catches. So the boys are back, right? Like it's ramping up, but it's only one media day. So now we're kind of just left with them practicing at OTAs, but us not really knowing too much about it. It was fun to hear reports. It was fun to get those raw numbers again with the quarterback. It was fun to hear about the kickers and who missed kicks and all that stuff. So we're getting close, right, Rob? We're getting
Well,
close.
Grant said that there's going to be another open practice next week because there
Oh,
are
next
some.
week.
Yes, which I didn't know either. I thought it was just
Mhm.
going to be the one. I believe they have one on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And so hopefully one of those days will also be open to the media, which would be awesome because I'm so desperate. It's so great to have actual on-field stuff. I don't care that it's just practice. They're on grass and they're doing football stuff, damn it. I've been waiting for it since February.
Other things that I saw from the press conference as well, too. Well, Sam Darnold went first to the podium. The 49ers are the only team that have three quarterbacks go up to the podium, right? For OTAs. Where's Brandon Allen? I feel bad for Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen, it just feels like he's just in the background somewhere. But I wanted to talk about what Trey Lance said about Brock Purdy. And one of the things that I really and everyone notices about Trey Lance is that he always going to give the right answer. He's very smart, very well spoken. And he said, yeah, it's clear that Brock deserves to be the guy, leader in the clubhouse, whatever it is, because of what he did. As much as that probably still the competitor in him hurts, to hear him say that is a very mature thing, even if it's the obvious.
Super mature. I almost wish he wasn't that mature. I would really like to hear Trey Lance say, Brock was awesome last year. He did great. I think I'm better than Brock, but it's on me to go show everybody, to go prove that. I haven't proven it on the field. I need to go do it. But in my heart, I think I'm the best quarterback on this team. I would like to see a little fire from him. Not that he maybe doesn't believe that on the inside. I have no idea. But I would like to see a little public fire. Like Brock had that fire the second he got in there. I'd like to see it from Trey a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if he does say that though, right? People would tear him to shreds about being a me first guy and everything. And I do think again, the one thing that we can set our watch to with Trey is his maturity. And I don't think he's going to speak it. He wants to show it on the field as well too. It's just I don't know if there's anything he can do specifically in terms of a number or show some sort of development that still doesn't have this thing turned back to Brock Purdy. And again, rightfully so. I mean, based on the way this offense was rolling, they were scoring 30 points for the first time since like that Garcia guy was here.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's good to hear the maturity, but I think everybody knows, right? Like once Brock's ready to roll, he's ready to roll, and I think that's it. And I think this team is all behind on board with that. And unfortunately, right now, with the way that this played out, the story's not written for Trey Lance. But if we were writing the book right now, it would be unfortunate circumstances or unlucky. Like those would be the words that I think we would be using to describe him more than outright being able to evaluate his play and put a finger on who he is, because we're going into year three, year four, right now at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's year three.
Great. 21,
Yeah.
22.
Right. Year three. And now we have the same questions about Trey Lance that we had day one about his development, his mechanics. Where is he? Can he start? And that's the frustrating part, right? When you look at that draft class, and I had said, remember, you guys know, I always wanted Justin Fields, but I said that it was going to take 3 years to figure out what all these guys are. Well, Trevor Lawrence looks like that guy. Mac Jones has a make or break year this year. Justin Fields has a chance to take a third year leap. He's starting to show a little bit, right? Zach Wilson, it looks like he's done, right? Like that. But here we are with Trey Lance at the number 3 pick, and we still have the same questions from day one. I think that's where a lot of the frustration from fans is met. And I don't disagree with that.
And keep this in mind, too. Let's say Brock comes back and he looks great and he's his old self, and that's awesome. Well, the 49ers have only had one healthy quarterback season since 2014. So even if all that stuff happens and all those dice come up sevens, historically, Trey Lance is going to get a chance to play because Brock's going to get hurt at some point. If the trend of 49ers quarterback injuries continues, Trey Lance, if he's the number 2, will get a chance to play this season.
One more thing I wanted to point out because I forgot, and not because I interviewed him, but Grant said that Jair Brown was looking great as well too. Telling you guys, he's going to be on the field. He's going to be. You're not going to be able to keep that kid off the field. So Tashaun Gibson will get it. It's not like Tashaun Gibson's going to get blown off the field or anything like that. But you're going to have a tough time keeping Tig off the field, and that's really great to hear, especially with their first pick.
He was drafted to replace Gibson. Let's be honest. So whether that happens next year or this year, if he can go out there and prove it, I'm all for it. Get him back there. Hufanga, 2 instinctive kind of ball hawk type players, can maybe make some game changing plays. Bring it on, man. Let's have a draft pick come in and hit the ground running.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Wow. Aha. Well, Steph. Look who's on the outside looking in, right? Like I feel like when I watched you guys on your stream, I was Squidward watching Patrick and SpongeBob. How's that? So
Rob,
bleep it out, Rob. And let's see how the turntables. Pat Garcia said Larry said Brown didn't stand out. That's why conflicting reports are what they are. Lombardi said Moody didn't miss any kicks. Grant and Mayoko said he missed a kick. This is what I didn't I say that, Rob? I live for the conflicting reports. I live for it because nobody sees the game the way that everybody else does. I live for this. Someone would say that he went 7 for 11. One guy will say he went 6 for 10. I love it. I love it.
I mean, look, I think maybe it depends on your expectations of Jair Brown too, right? If you expect him to be like an awesome player and he's just okay, then maybe you're going to think he didn't stand out. If you don't have expectations and he makes a couple good plays, you're going to think, hey, Jair Brown looked pretty good, you know? So it's a matter of expectations and actual performance.
Oh, man, we're getting close. We're getting real close. I know that you got another show to do in a few minutes, so I'm going to get you out of here, Rob. Rob, tell everybody where they can find all your stuff and all our stuff as well, too.
You can find us at the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube page. Anywhere podcasts are found, you'll hear your show with you and Steph on Tuesdays. Me and Levin Black are on Thursdays. Grant Cohn and I do a live stream every Wednesday. There's a ton of content. It's a football buffet on the Gold Standard Network. So no matter what kind of show you like, we have one for you. So hopefully you'll give us a shot, and we think we'll earn your time.
Absolutely. And again, guys, almost an hour in here, almost 140 people in here. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to both channels, hit that notification bell for when we go live. And also, Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you use that promo code Aponte. Double your first deposit up to $100. We're going to start sending out some best ball drafts. So if you want to get into a fantasy league with me, you don't have to send any liners with best ball. You can go ahead and do that as well, too. But we're going to get out of here, Rob. I know you got to take care of the kids. You're on daddy duty, and you're about to, get back to potty. And this man is a master of many talents, wearer of all caps as well, too. But shout out to all you guys in here. We're going to talk soon. Hopefully, Andrew comes back. We'll do some sprint right option. I don't know, man. This guy's in the Philippines, just like in the water, like swimming with the whales and stuff. And it's like, dude, I just want to pot about the damn 49ers. So, but thank you, Rob, for joining me, man. And shout out to all you guys for joining as well, too. Thank you guys for the support. And we'll talk to you soon. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.